Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. And this is the Sports Page with Bob Case. And I'm Harper LaBelle. Today, we've got a very special guest. He's an architect. He's a guy that is building, but from the sports world, he's building franchises. And we're going to talk today to the great Fred Clare and pay tribute to his service to the Los Angeles Dodgers and to Major League Baseball. Bob, you met Fred probably 30, 40 decades ago, way back in the 1970s. And I'm teasing there, but your baseball exposure got you crossed in with so many others, and you had the great fortune of meeting Fred. Tell us a little bit about that first introductory meeting that you had with him.
Well, we were just talking. I believe it was the day 1972 at an old timers game at the Stadium Club. They had a luncheon the day before, and all the players that participated. And that, you talk about an old timers game. I mean, Jackie Robinson, Campanella, Koufax. Everybody was there. Roger Maris, Joe DiMaggio. It was just a who's who. Charlie Gehringer. I could not tell you. I could list for an hour the name. But I met Fred in the Stadium Club that night, and I remember the best thing I can tell you about Fred Clare is one of my dearest friends who I've known since his rookie year in 1963 was Al the Bull Ferrara, and I always said Al was like a mob guy. He's from Brooklyn, New York, Italian, and he was as street savvy as anybody I was ever around. And I mean, he could read people like you could not believe. He was absolutely hilarious. And when Al the Bull Ferrara told me from day one that now Al was a drinker and a hellraiser, and Fred wasn't, right? But you know what he told me? He said, "Bob, I love that guy." And I can't tell you how many times Al the Bull told me that. So what that told me before I ever really knew that much about Fred was what a great guy he was, because I respected Al's intellect and people savvy as much as anybody I'd ever been around. And I've been around a lot of characters from New York, but Al was amazingly smart, played the concert at the Carnegie Hall, the pianist, and did this and da-da. But anyway, Fred Clare was such a great boost to the Dodger history. I mean, the Dodger history. I was saying the other day, I have always believed there's two general managers on the Dodgers that should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And one of them was Buzzy. And Buzzy and Fred were totally different types of guys, but both very effective general managers. And I actually talked to Peter Bavasi about that a couple days ago. And I think both of them should be in the Hall of Fame. But then I did some research. In the history of the Hall of Fame, they only have 4 general managers. George Weiss, who hired Casey in 1949, was the last general manager elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But the only reason I'm bringing this up, because that shows you what I thought of Fred Clare. I mean, the moves I saw him make, the respect he had from everybody, from the players. I loved it when he brought Ben Hines in from college, and he was a great coach there, and the players loved him. Ben Hines, what a sweet guy he was. But anyway, and that was a Fred Clare move. Everybody said, "What? He's bringing a guy from college? Who is this guy?" The players ended up loving the guy, so and respected him. So anyway, I'm going to let Fred talk, but it's been an honor to know him. He's a class act. He lives over there by Justin Dato in the Rose Bowl, and he's just been a tremendous. You talk about he's a classy guy, man. That's the other thing. I don't think I've ever heard a negative word about Fred Clare in all the years I've been around. How many people can you say that about in baseball? I don't recall ever hearing anything negative. And I thought it was a shit show that caused Fred to resign, which I hope you get into, that they didn't consult him, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, I love you, Fred. I'm honored to have you on this show, and I can't wait to hear some of your stories.
Thank you.
Fred, on October 5th, 1935, I think you were there. You were born in Jamestown, Ohio. That was 90 years ago yesterday. First and foremost, happy birthday. Congratulations on such an amazing milestone.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. What'd you get to do to celebrate yesterday?
Yesterday, Cheryl and I went to Oakmont Country Club that Bob had mentioned in Glendale. And we hit a few golf balls, visited with friends, had lunch, came home to our home near the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and watched a little baseball, and went out to dinner at a wonderful restaurant that Bob probably knows. It's right in our neighborhood called Stony Point, and they do a wonderful job. It's a great place right in our neighborhood area. So it was truly a wonderful day. And on Saturday, Cheryl and I had played a little pickleball in our backyard in the morning, and went to Claremont to visit with my two wonderful daughters, Jennifer and Kimberly. And so it was a great weekend, and I feel very, very blessed.
Well, just down the road from you, the UCLA Bruins were beating up on Penn State. Do you ever hear any of the action that goes on there?
I'll tell you, that was had to be. It had to be a tremendous game, because I told Cheryl the game was starting at 12:30. So we have to, on Saturdays when UCLA plays or any event at the Rose Bowl, our schedule when we leave and when we come home has to operate around the Rose Bowl schedule.
Yeah.
And that I'm very familiar with, because I was fortunate to be on the Rose Bowl operating company for many, many years. But I told Cheryl, I said, this game is going to be a blowout. There's no way.
Yeah.
But you know what it says is, and I didn't see the game, so I know nothing about it. And Harper, you're a football guy. But what I do know in terms of football, baseball, or any sport, it is two main ingredients: leadership and attitude. And I have no clue about what happened that UCLA game other than the bad start that they had. And there had to be, for them to produce that result with no background, with nothing to base this on, there had to be a change in leadership and attitude for them to win that game. Because that was, what was Penn State, ranked number 7, I believe?
Yeah, from number 2.
That's got to be one of the great, and I know UCLA football back to the days of Red Sanders. So I have a little bit of a feel for UCLA football, as I do for USC football, because those were the days of, as Bob well knows, of the great John McKay and Red Sanders, and the tremendous history of those two schools. And when they both played at one time in the Coliseum. So applause to UCLA for that great victory.
Fred, how does a kid from Jamestown, Ohio, end up the general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers and architecting a World Series win and stuff like that? Was sports a big part of your life growing up early in Ohio?
Well, I've thought a lot about that of late, as I get into a period of reflection, and as I mentioned before the show, reflection and direction. One thing in growing up in a small town in Ohio, and indeed that may be Jamestown that we're looking at, or a small town.
It is
that I had a love from the very beginning for sports, and went to the school in Jamestown was Silver Creek School. Jamestown is a small town in southwestern Ohio. Population around 1,500, maybe 2,000 at the max. So Silver Creek had in our class from the beginning, grade 1, and we were going through grade 12 to the same school, we had only 30 students, boys and girls. I had my goal in life was to be the point guard of the Silver Creek basketball team and the shortstop on the Silver Creek baseball team.
Nice.
And so I had this love, and I was really, my father and mother took us early on. I was probably 1948, 49. So I was 12 or 13, to Crosley Field. And once I saw Crosley Field, it was magic. I knew at 12 or 13, somehow, some way, I wanted to spend my life in sports.
Hmm.
I didn't know early on, and thinking about this, I thought that there's once I got a realization in high school that my athletic talent wasn't going to take me beyond the junior college level. I knew that I wanted to spend my life connected with sports, and I didn't know whether that would be as a coach. I thought maybe it could be as a coach because again, I knew my talent wasn't going to go very far. But the blessing was what I was introduced to. Even in Silver Creek, when I look back, somehow I became a staff member of the not the newspaper, there was none, but of the annual that they put out each year. And then when my family moved to California and there was a journalism class, I discovered writing.
Mm.
I knew that, and I was on the sports staff in addition to competing. I was on the sports staff of the Torrance High School paper. And then I saw that this is a way, this is a path for me to be connected with sports. And through the guidance and help of many wonderful people, that ultimately led to a chance to go from Torrance to El Camino College with a wonderful journalism professor, Mr. William Cameron, and then the transfer to San Jose State with a degree in journalism, and then the start in with the Whittier Daily News in 1957 as a sports writer for the Whittier Daily News. And that took me from Whittier to Pomona to Long Beach. And from Long Beach in 1969, the chance to join the Dodgers as director of publicity, first covering the beat in 69, covering the Dodgers. And then the opportunity to become publicity director connected to my journalism. So I went from publicity director to vice president of public relations and promotions, to executive vice president, to executive vice president, general manager, to being fired by Fox. So that was 30 wonderful years of the Dodgers with so many wonderful memories and friendships that exist today.
Fred, I'm thinking there's a lesson in life that even though you may have reached the pinnacle of your athletic abilities in high school or around that time, your love for the game itself and wanting to stay a part of any of that athletically stayed real active for you, and you just found other ways to be able to make that happen. Is there some truth to that?
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
No question. And that's why it's trite. But I tell students, and I've been involved heavily in the academic world. After Dodger days, I taught at USC. I helped start the sports management program at Long Beach State. I taught the first sports class ever at Caltech. A number of my Caltech students now working for the Dodgers. It's trite to say, follow your passion, but you have to be in a path of what you're doing that you truly you not only enjoy it, but that you are dedicated to it. Because in looking back through all of those years, whether it was newspaper work or whether it was with the Dodgers, I never ever really felt that I worked a day in my life. I did what I absolutely thoroughly loved.
And being able to be in the right place at the right time, Fred, I'm just thinking that that has a lot to do with it too. You're working for some of these papers, you're going to cover the games. The next thing you know, the Dodgers have a need, and you're there in 1969. You're a part of the organization, right? You're working in the public relations department for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, that just doesn't happen to anybody off the street. You've got to be around. Is that part of the situation for you as well?
You have to be in the stream. True. Although today, in today's world, uh, that there are once you develop certain skills, they're transferable. You're seeing this now in sports more than ever. That they can take whether it's baseball or any sport or football. If you have a skill, for example, in analytics, you might be working for a financial company in analytics. You might be working for a tech company. And I'm sure you know this, Harper, as you look at the NFL, where I once had the opportunity, we'll talk about one of my career decisions was an opportunity that I had to go to the NFL Creative Services
Hmm.
and ultimately rejected that. But yeah, and you cannot, at a young age, at any age, we can't be afraid of risk, of taking a risk. I had a very secure job in Pomona when the paper was sold. I didn't like what was happening and made the move to Long Beach. When I went from Long Beach, was offered the position with the Dodgers. I took less pay to go to the Dodgers. At a young age, think more about opportunity. I used to say, I can remember at different times when not many job changes, but if I made a change, um, someone would say, Fred, what, you're making a change here. What if that doesn't work out? I would say, you know what? I've made money since I tracked muskrats in Jamestown, Ohio, and passed newspapers. I
Yeah.
believe in myself that I'll be able to make a living. I'm not going to let what I see as I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid of what I see as an opportunity. We cannot, in a broader picture, live our lives in fear. There are very basic principles. And when you make a change, there's one thing about it: build the foundation. You have to be prepared for an opportunity. And when I became the general manager of the Dodgers in 1987, the very beginning of the season, people said, or a lot of writers, well, Fred really hasn't been in baseball per se. I had been with the Dodgers for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
I knew every scout. I knew every player. I knew every opposing team and their personnel because we were a very small staff. And when I became the general manager, after sadly uh, Al Campanis was fired, which was another story because he was a dear friend and contributed greatly to the game. But Al accepted his fate. But I remember that two things happened. If you go back and look at the Los Angeles Times that day, uh, the when they asked Peter O'Malley how long does Fred have this job, and he gave a great answer. Peter says he has it for today. You know what? That's all any of us have.
Yeah.
We have it for today. And I said to Ross Newham, a dear friend who Bob knows, uh, when he asked me about the responsibility, I said, the buck stops here. I didn't say it because of saying how much power I have. I said it because I am a huge believer in life and in athletics and everything we do, accepting responsibility. And when Peter had offered me the job as general manager, opening day at Dodger Stadium, 1987. I said, Peter, I'm honored, but I accept it only under one condition. And he said, what's that? I said, and I knew he would be in agreement because that's the way he operated. I get full, total, complete responsibility. Because I thought to myself, if and when they fire my ass, which they always do at some point in a career like that, I want it to be for the decisions that I have made based on my thoughts and based on what I knew was my greatest strength, the people in our organization that I could call upon for advice.
Wow. There's a lot to that, Fred. And I'm thinking too, the person listening that, well, how do I become the general manager? Well, I better do this or that. I think some of this started for you. And I'm going to go back to the Pacific Coast League when you were first starting with the Dodgers and realizing what you had, what your opponents had, and the way that all of them think intertwined. They all want to win, but how am I going to get my team to play just a little bit better than the other guys? And how do we win one more game than everybody else and get to win that last one, play for a championship? Learning the rosters, the players, the managers, who's healthy, who's injured, who's going to be injured for a long time, who's hitting the ball well, who isn't. You got little bits and pieces of that each and every day while you're putting together game notes, aren't you? For whether it be Vince Scully or anybody that's out there, that became an early part of your responsibility. Am I right there?
No question, but it's interesting, fascinating. And Bob knows from his history, you mentioned the Pacific Coast League, because this really is a reflection of my early love for the game and ties in with writing. And I'm not often asked this story, but you can go online and see this. 1953, I'm a freshman at El Camino College. I'm in a journalism class. And strangely enough, I had mentioned the professor's name, Professor Cameron. One of the assignments is that each student in his writing class, creative writing, had to get 3 rejection slips. 1953. So I submitted 3 stories. One was to Baseball Magazine. Now I'm 17 years old, and the story is titled, it's not fiction, it's online, Make Way for the Coast League. A story written on the premise that Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco, Seattle could support Major League Baseball. So I get 2 rejection slips. The class is coming to an end. Mr. Cameron says, Fred, you've submitted 2 rejection slips, but you haven't submitted the 3rd. And I said, well, I haven't gotten the rejection slip. And he said, well, just show me the copy of the story, which I, for whatever reasons, could not locate. We didn't have computers in those days.
Yeah.
And he said, Fred, I can't give you the grade that you deserve because you failed to meet the requirements of the class. A week after the class, a check comes in the mail. Baseball Magazine has accepted my story. Make way for the Coast League. Now, this is 5 years before the Dodgers came to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I'm 17 years old, but I knew the Coast League at 17. My interest had shifted from Ohio, this small town. And one of the first things I wanted to do, my father enabled to happen, was go to Wrigley Field, 42nd and Avalon, to go to Gilmore Field, Bob knows, in Hollywood. And so I followed the Pacific Coast League. And one of the great blessings of my life, having followed the Pacific Coast League, and then coming to the Dodgers, and people like the great scout George Genovese, who had been a shortstop for Hollywood, or the wonderful Gene Malk, who had been a second baseman for the Angels.
Gail Henley played for the Hollywood Stars.
Gail Henley played, who was mentioned in my article, Bob. Not only that, but was a Dodger scout. So that was the depth of my love for the game, and an understanding, and with an appreciation of the players. And so it's been a once we're in an area, and Harper, I'm sure you know this from football too. Once you're in an area, it's really a very small world once you're in there, and the connections become very close. But all of that, I think back, and even when I watch baseball today, in terms of my own history with the game and my deep love for the game. But when I came to the Dodgers, I never saw myself as a, quote, fan. I never asked a player for an autograph. I was there to do a job. So, but it's been, and when I watch baseball, and with all due respect to football and my opportunity that we might talk about to go to the NFL, from my own personal standpoint, I think, oh my God, despite all of the changes, this is the greatest game in the world. And how I love, from the bottom, from my soul, from my heart, everything I do, I absolutely love the game.
And that stems from a visit to Crosby Field as a little kid and seeing the green grass and not seeing it in black and white, and getting to watch your heroes while they're warming up or during a game. Tell me what it was like for you that first time that you showed up in Vero Beach, 1969, and you get to see some of the Brooklyn Dodgers that are there, and you've got some of the LA Dodgers that are there. And it's just an amazing compilation where the old guys get to intermingle with the new, and you're a part of that. Did you have to pinch yourself every now and then just to go, I can't believe I'm here?
Harper, you've really hit, you fellows, both of you had done your homework, because Vero Beach, Dodger Town, my first trip to Dodger Town was to cover the Dodgers in the spring of 1969. And so, because I had covered the Angels when I left the Pomona paper to go to Long Beach, the Angels in 68, when the chance came up to take the Dodger beat in 69 with the Long Beach paper, that was my introduction to Dodger Town. Now, this goes back far enough that we're staying in, it was a naval barracks, as you know, during World War II. We're staying in the old barracks. But there I saw early on this foundation of the Dodgers. There is Walter and Kay O'Malley staying there on base. There is Walter Austin. There are all of his great coaches. There is Roy Campanella. There's all the history, and the meals are there, morning, lunch, evening. Just everything is encompassed in Dodger Town. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And as fate would have it, in 1969, I didn't join the Dodgers until I was director of publicity until July of 69, the very day that man walked on moon, as a side. But in 1969, I'm covering the Dodgers for the first time in 69. Spokane has a manager by the name of Tommy Lasorda in 1969. And Tommy and I become fast on very good friends. And another close friend was a writer by the name of John Webush, who became a legendary person with the NFL that we'll talk about because that came into play.
Okay.
So Tommy and I become friends. We'd go out to dinner many nights, John and I and Tommy and whoever else that he brought along. His manager Spokane. So I told him that I had played a little bit of high school baseball. So one day in the spring, I'm going to get on the bus to go to Orlando to cover the spring training game between the Dodgers and the Twins. And Tommy is near the bus. I'm getting on the bus with the major league team or players to go to Orlando. He said, calls me off the bus. I'm just stepping on. He said, Fred, I thought you said you wanted to play for our Spokane team one day. And Spokane's playing Bakersfield that day on the field right near the Dodger clubhouse. I said, Tommy, I never said that I wanted to play for Spokane. I said, maybe I'd take some infield one day. He said, okay, you chicken shit. You get on that bus and never tell me again about wanting to play for us. This is the motivation of Thomas Wood.
Yeah.
I'm a very mild guy. You do not want to challenge me. Ask the people who know me. Don't give me a challenge. Step off the bus. Say, okay, where do I get my uniform?
There you go.
He said, go see Jim Mewey in the minor league clubhouse. Go see Mewey, get my uniform on, come back to the field. Spokane, Tommy's very great Spokane team is playing Bakersfield. He said, okay, go warm up. Go down the right field line, warm up, come back. I said, okay.
Fred, you don't have a glove. You don't have cleats. What the heck? I mean, you barely got a hat and a jersey.
Mewey gave me the cleats. I was going to borrow a glove.
Nice.
So Tommy says, go coach first base. And I replied, Lasorda, you chicken shit. I didn't come here to coach. He said, okay, pal. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Next inning, this is all true. It's well documented. You go replace Bobby Valentine.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
Spring training game.
Yeah.
So I go in to replace Valentine. Now I'm coming to bat in the spring training game. We're playing Spokane's playing Bakersfield, a young left-hander who was the grandson of the supervisor, Warren Dorn. This young man had played.
Bob Dorn. I played high school baseball with him.
He had good stuff.
Absolutely.
So I stepped into the box, and I must have looked. I was, 31, 32 years old. I must have looked decent in my uniform because the catcher looked at me, he said, knew I was a little older. He said, you were with the big club last year, weren't you? I said, hey, kid, just have me throw the ball. So somehow they had a scouting report on me. And Dorn threw 3 fastballs right over the middle of the plate. And I was gone. Before I walked up, Billy Williams, the National League umpire, was on the bench with Tommy. And Tommy told Billy, where do you see this guy? He's out of Stanford. We gave him $100,000.
Okay.
Where do you see this kid? And when those 3 fastballs went by me, Williams turned to Tommy and he said, hey, Tommy, I'm not a scout. They paid that guy $99,900 too much. So I stay in the game. Now the game is tied and they're going to end it after 7 innings. I'm coming up in the 7th inning, and on second base is Steve Sagi, the former USC quarterback who had signed with the Dodgers, and there's 2 outs. And I think to myself, Oh Lord, if I can just get a base hit and score this guy, it will be it'll be the talk of Dodger Town.
No kidding.
And pitch comes in, can't remember the pitcher at this point, and I hit a little pop fly in the right field. It's sinking, and the right fielder comes in, makes the catch. I'm out. Game over. Drysdale had been on his bicycle, had driven from home and stadium to watch the end of this game. And he came up to me and said, "Fred, that's the most courage I've ever seen a player display at Dodger Town." So, to tell that story, I guess it's all the love of the game and the depth of the game. And again, not having a fear. I knew I could pick up a ground ball. I picked up ground balls all my life. I don't care whether it's in an exhibition game or what it is. So, but that was my introduction to Tommy. And again, how would we know? That's 1969. And now, in nearly 20 years later, in 1987, when I had the chance to become the general manager, and the moves that we made in 1988, Tommy and I holding a World Series championship trophy. So, Harper, your story about how does a boy from Jamestown, Ohio, end up holding a World Series trophy? I think it's a combination of
Wow, what a great picture that is. What a shot.
Of belief in yourself, of dedication, of preparation, of and of respect for the people around you. Because more than anything, I just wanted to be a part of the team. That was my goal. And and I think about it from time to time because that's a very rare thing, to be honored to be in that position. And the other thing you have to realize when you're in the game, that moment lasts as long as that picture is taken, and that's all. Because the next year, it's a matter of getting ready to try to do the same thing again with all of your might, all of your effort, all of your everything. That's the challenge, and it was always the competition and the challenge that I enjoyed more than anything. You can take the office, you can take the title, you can take the money, you can take it all.
Hey, Harper, let me just say this. He wasn't just holding a trophy. I could hold a trophy. He was the architect of that trophy. So that's something that's really amazing. What a picture with Reagan. That's one of the best pictures I've ever seen. Lasorda and the Nancy, and what an amazing photo. I never saw that before.
Yeah. How about this? I'll get to it in just a second. I was going to have another one that I wanted to do, but Bob, check this out. Fred's not even paying any attention. Look at him. He's looking over. Hey, there's a guy over there that I think I can sign for next year's club. I got to get a deal done for this guy. He's not even posing for the picture. What's up, Fred?
No, I think I'm the one looking at the cameraman. You can see Tommy's eyes too. The president is probably looking for voters. I'm looking at the camera guy.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy never saw a camera he didn't like. So.
That's right. And this is a very unusual picture of Tommy.
Yeah.
Because Tommy always said, Fred, in any picture, always be in the middle so they can't crop you out.
Yeah. Well, he's probably telling Nancy to move over, lady. I'm
Yeah.
going to take over. I want to be in this one a little bit closer. But
What do they say? A photo's worth 1,000 words. Well, that's worth 1,000,000 words. That photo, I'll tell you.
well, and you know all the things that happened. I have one of you earlier, Fred, and I on purpose. It's you by yourself, and you had mentioned when you took the job from the O'Malleys during your negotiation, you wanted to be the guy. And there are plenty of times where you literally are by yourself making these decisions, right? You've got people around you helping to figure out, is this guy, is this batting average high enough? And can this guy field? And is this guy still healthy enough to play? Do we want to sign him? But now that, as you said, the buck stops here. It's all on you. You and Tommy, yes, making decisions. You and the O'Malleys, can I do this deal? What was that like for you in the first? Because you didn't have this responsibility before. It's not like you were an assistant to the general manager. You get the job, and now it all rests with you. What was that like at the early few stages of this? Because now you've got to build a team that has not done very well in the mid 80s. And you go from being, not in last place, but certainly a struggling organization to where you win the division and you get in the playoffs and you're trying to build a World Series champion. What was that like for you?
Good question. And as history shows, in 1986, as our friend Casey would say, you can look it up, the Dodgers were 16 games under 500. 16 games under 500. In 1987, when I took over and the team already formed for that year, we were 16 games under 500. We were a combined 32 games under 500 entering 1988. I don't know if this has ever happened. Somebody could check it in history. But I knew we had to make changes, significant changes. And I identified what I felt they needed to be. We desperately needed a shortstop. We desperately needed a center fielder. We desperately needed a closer. And those are the areas that I addressed once I took over in 87. My first trade was for the wonderful John Shelby, who played center field. And at the winter meetings in 1987, in a three-way trade with the Mets in Oakland, we acquired our closer, Jay Howe, and our shortstop, Alfredo Griffin. But here was my whole philosophy in making decisions. Two very basic points that I think can serve all of us well in our lives or in anything. Rely on the people that you feel or know you can trust to help you with the decision. Go to those people with the best possible knowledge, hopefully and probably more knowledge than you had. But this is critical. Once you make the deal, you take full, total responsibility. Because once you start casting blame within your organization, you are lost. I heard general managers in all sports say it was an organizational decision. You know what? 30 years in the game, I don't know what the hell an organizational decision is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It,
And the terrible trade that I made for Pedro Martinez, I can remember Frank Jobe calling me and saying, Fred, because he knew in a meeting, he said, I know the report that I gave you, that his shoulder wouldn't hold up. With all the criticism that you take, Fred, why don't you ever say to the press the report I gave you? I said, Frank, you're the doctor of the Dodgers. You're the best orthopedic man in the world.
In the world.
You did not make that trade. I made that trade. So I'm never going to say that.
Yeah.
I say it in a passing because history has shown how great he was, and it's factual. He didn't. You take all the information, make the decision, but then most important, take responsibility.
Yeah.
When I meet with young people today, young students, and I meet with many, I tell them, you know what? Form your own advisory board. It might be 19 years old. Have 4 or 5 people that you can rely on for advice. Maybe
Yeah.
your parents, maybe an uncle, maybe a friend, maybe a teacher. Call upon them for counsel. But take responsibility in your life. If you don't have responsibility for what you do in your life, how can you control where in the hell it's going to end?
Yeah. And Fred, if you sell Frank Job under the bus, well, it was the doctor report. Frank will never give you another report again, right? You know, you give me a report, I assessed it.
But the scouts who I treasure so much, and the people in the game, in the Dodger organization, because we had so many wonderful people, they knew that whatever they told me would be kept in confidence unless it was successful, where they knew they would be praised.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of trying to be a martyr. It's a matter of understanding what you can do to create the best group of people around you. And you have to be candid at times. I can remember in one winter meetings when we were actually, the player was Dale Murphy. It's the end of his career, and I was thinking about signing him as an extra player. So I went around the room. There were probably 12 people, and I asked one of our high-ranked scouts, "What do you think?" I went around asking one by one, "What do you think of him?" And this one scout said, "I don't like him." And I said, "Why do you say that? You don't like him?" He said, "Because Tommy doesn't like him." And I flipped. I said, "Look, guys, there's 12 of us in this room. I'm not asking you what you think Tommy thinks. I'm asking you what you think. Because if what you think is based only on what Tommy thinks, all of you can leave the room."
Yeah, I might as well just go get Tommy. I don't need you.
So, and I didn't say that to embarrass him, because he was a wonderful scout.
Sure.
I said that because I want your opinion.
Yep.
And I will value your opinion. I will consider your opinion, and I will never blame you for your opinion. But then on the other hand, what you really learn is who knows what. And you learn the strength of scouts. Some are much better at scouting pitchers. Some are much better at scouting very young players. That they have their strengths. So you have to know your scouts. And my greatest enjoyment and love, even though I was the general manager, was with the scouts and with the minor league personnel. I loved them.
Yeah. Who do we got coming up? Who's going to make our club and benefit us? And Fred, when I found this picture or these, one of the cool things about your job, especially early on, and it's not just building the club, but it's also keeping the older guys that are a part of the history of the organization. And I'm talking about Brooklyn, and I'm talking about Los Angeles, and getting a chance to sit around with Don Newcomb and Steve Garvey and whoever else. There's a picture with you and Jerry Royce and the O'Malleys, and having it all together and say, you're welcome here. You're always a Dodger, trying to maintain that quote unquote Yankee type, but once a Yankee, always a Yankee, but doing it in a different way. You're wearing a blue uniform instead of a black and white. I think that's an additional part of the job that has nothing to do with us on the field today, but honoring the past. Tell me what that was like for you.
That's a very critical point, because I'll tell you where I was really blessed. Early on, joined the Dodgers in '69. And actually, I had pushed for a old timers game. And the wonderful Red Patterson, the vice president, really my boss, who I could not have respected more. Red wasn't particularly in favor of the old timers game. He said, Fred, this team's only been in Los Angeles for X number of years, you know. And Red invented the old timers game, bless his heart. I loved him. There he is there. And I said, Red, it's just not the LA Dodgers. The history is the Dodgers, the Dodgers of all history. And so Red being Red, we went with to Peter. Peter said, I agree with Fred. We should have an old timers game. That's what started it.
Carl
No one did more to promote it than this gentleman right here, Red Patterson, because he knew the players back to literally, it seemed like the beginning of time. But here was my blessing. I not only knew, but was able to establish friendships with Roy Campanella, with Pee Wee Reese, with Duke Snyder, with Jackie, with George Shuba, with the wonderful Carl Erskine, who we lost just recently. And I had an understanding about the quality of those people, not only as players, but what they were as people. And one of the most meaningful days of my life, as it turns out, this gentleman here, Bob Case, was there. It was old timers game, 1972. We retired the numbers of Jackie, of Sandy, and of Roy. Now, before that game, I'm standing on the field near the Dodger dugout with Jackie and several others as they prepared to go into the field. There was a fan in the stands who had
I was there. I saw that.
A fan who had a ball. And he said to Jackie, sign this ball. Sign this ball.
Right in the eye.
And he threw it in Jackie's direction, hit him on the shoulder, hit him in the head. Ball fell to the ground. Everyone around Jackie went crazy. Get that guy. Throw him out of the park. Throw him out of the stadium. Jackie, a reflection of who he had been as a player and the challenges that he faced, said, calm down. Give me the ball.
Oh, he signed it. Unbelievable.
Give me.
Wow.
Jackie's eyesight was so bad he could have seen that ball.
Yep.
They had
He had
sent it on.
diabetes, and his eyes were. Hey, Fred, I got to tell you one scout story, Fred. Can I tell you one scout story? You were talking about the Dodger scouts. This is one of the funniest stories ever. I'm sitting in 215 in the club level with Rod Dato, right? And the head of Dodger scouting, Ben Wade, came over and started talking to us, okay? Ben Wade says, we got a guy that's going to make the world forget about Duke Snyder.
Oh, yeah, Greg Brock.
Yeah. He went on for a half hour telling us that nobody will ever remember Duke Snyder. Yeah. You're right, Fred. You nailed it. He said this Greg Brock guy will make the world forget about Duke Snyder. And Rod Dato and I are looking at each other going, wow, this guy must really be something. I'd never heard of Greg Brock. Yeah. So the rest is history. But those scouts don't always make the right decisions.
But Jackie, after that 72, the World Series is being played in Cincinnati against Oakland.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bowie Kuhn invites Jackie to throw out the first ball. He said the honorary first pitch. He said, I will if you give me the opportunity to say a few words before the game. Before he went out for that ceremony, I'm standing there with Peter O'Malley, with others, with Jackie. And this person is approaching. We're in the runway before we go into the field. Is approaching Jackie. And Jackie doesn't recognize him until someone whispers in his ear, it's Pee Wee. And Jackie and Pee Wee embrace. Strangely enough, in Cincinnati, where years earlier that had been an embrace that was quite notable.
Wow.
Jackie went to the field, and this is all on tape, and you can see it. Jackie, being Jackie, said, baseball has made progress, but I will not be happy or satisfied until I see a black man in the third base coaching box, meaning diversity in the game. Jackie died 9 days later at the age of 52. That was his last appearance. But what he left us is the most notable thing in my life. And a quote that I try to live by, which I consider the most important quote, more important today than it's ever been. A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. And when I was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago and given a 20% chance of survival and saw the work at City of Hope, I told my wonderful wife, Cheryl, we've got to do something to help the City of Hope because they helped so many. And then I wanted to give, as part of a tournament, we had 2 tournaments, raised $500,000. But I won the Celebration of Life Award. The first year we gave it to Rod Carew, the second year to Tommy. But more than giving the award, I wanted that quote on the trophy, which exists, because I can't think of any organization that does more in my life, in my own experiences, to impact other lives than City Hope. So Jackie, the blessing of being with Jackie, of knowing Pee Wee very well, of knowing Roy Campanella very well, of knowing Carl Erskine, who yesterday would have been Carl and Betty's, I called one of Carl's close friends, wedding anniversary. Carl left us in his late 90s, just earlier this year or maybe last year. So that foundation for me, and Harper, you're absolutely right. And you know this in football, in college, or whatever. Honor your past. There was never, ever one time a former Dodger who walked into that office and asked for me that I didn't drop everything to visit with him. These are the people who made the Dodgers what they are today, not just the Koufaxes and the Drysdales and all of the other great people. It's why I had so much respect for Bob's wonderful friend, Al the Bull Ferrara. Literally, once a Dodger, always a Dodger. Yeah. And I treasured those friendships with Al. When I had the golf tournaments at Oakmont, we had overflow crowds. So we had to use the grill room. So Al comes to me, and Bob will appreciate this, and say, hey, Fred, you know, one time I worked as a maitre d' on the Hollywood Strip. I'll take over this this grill room, and they can't get in through me. When I was in City of Hope, I had 2 major operations. One where they removed the tumor from my jawbone and the other one where they took the fibula from my left leg and replaced my jawbone. So I'm in there for about 3 weeks. So Al calls me. He said, "Hey, Fred, how are you holding up?" I said, I'm ready to get home. He said, "Fred, I got friends from Jersey." I said, "I got friends from Jersey." Said, you tell me. You tell me when you went out. We'll come get you. We'll get you out of there. I said, "I don't care what the security is. We can get you out of there."
We'll get you out, buddy.
Hey,
Hey,
Fred.
let's have a little fun. Bob, real quick, do you mind? Fred, was there ever a better all-star jersey than Casey Stengel's one that had every team in the league on it, all that he coached and managed? Was that a special sight?
And that was the brainchild of the one and only Red Patterson. But
Yeah.
one of those old timers games, Casey comes to the office lobby, asked for me because he said he's going to need to get down to the field. I'm going to have somebody take him down. So I go out to see him. He said, "Fred, my left knee is killing me." This is one of Casey's last years. I said, "Well, Dr. Job's here." So I said, "I'll send Dr. Job down to see him." So Job comes in. I go down with him to see Casey. Casey, "God, Doc, my knee is killing me." And Frank says, "Well, when did you hurt it, Casey?" And he said, I think it was 1932. But
It's been bugging me for years and years and years and years and years, Doc. Come on now.
yeah, it was special.
Well, Bob, you got to see that up close and personal. You probably got to see Casey wear that a couple of times at some of the
Oh
games.
yeah, he was. Are you kidding? He wore that a lot. He loved that thing. He really did. I think when he passed away, it's in Cooperstown now. They asked for that specific jersey, and they had it.
I was at Casey's funeral, Bob,
I was a pallbearer there.
and one trip back from a World Series or someplace, Casey and Peter O'Malley and I were on the same flight. I'll never forget this. Casey had tipped a little too much. So Peter says, "Fred," he said, "I'm worried about it. You got to drive him home." Now, you can correct me, Bob, because I'm not sure. So I get him to Glendale, and it's a treacherous trip because he's given directions.
Oh,
Now we get to his house. But did they have a circular driveway to go in there? Because
it was like a mansion. It was on Grandview.
yeah, so Casey said, "Fred, you can't drive in here without my direction." Now it's night. He gets out of the car, and I'm thinking,
I've seen him do that. I've seen him do that many
Casey,
times.
stay in the car, and I'm thinking, God Almighty. With him stumbling around out there, I'm gonna run into Casey in his own driveway. This is going to be a terrible day for everybody. But can you imagine the joy of having that in your memory bank, whether it's Jackie or Casey or all of the other memories that really, for me, go back probably to 1948 and Crosby Field. And if you held up a board today of 50 players and their baseball cards from 48, I guarantee you, if I don't name 50, I'll name 45 without their names.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting to me, Fred, is what you said. Now, you got a couple of years on me, but that was exactly my life, the Pacific Coast League.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
The biggest thrill of my life was in 1956, and my dad didn't do a lot with me, but he took me down to Wrigley Field on 42nd and Avalon night to see Steve Bilko was my
Yeah.
God. He was my God. There used to be a Helms Bakery truck that would come around LA, and I would steal a quarter out of my mom's purse and go out and buy 6 glazed donuts so I could get fat like Bilko, and I played first base, and I wanted to hit home runs like him. And then I later worked with him with the Angels. Now, what are the odds of that? I got to know him in '62 with the Los Angeles Angels, and they played at Dodger Stadium and won us.
Bilko, Gene Baker, Gene
Baker, Gene Mock, Steve Bilko,
and the Hollywood Stars.
The whole team: Jim Bolger, Casey Wise, Bob Speak, Bob Shuffing, the manager.
Stevens became a great friend.
Yeah.
George Genovese, Tommy Saffel.
Yeah. Oh, I love. He
Bobby
played
Brady.
for the Beaver, Saffel. I love Saffel. A little left-hander.
Harper, the love of the game.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But you're right, though. But see, and Harper said the same thing on another broadcast. He said the first time he went to the ballpark, and it's like, that's what I said this before. What's the greatest era in baseball history? When you were a kid. When you were a kid. That's one of the great, because that's when the love of the game comes in you, and it's grandfathers passing it to grandchildren. It's my dad telling me about seeing Babe Herman play, and it's about me telling my kids I saw Ted Williams hit, and about my kids telling somebody I saw. It's all. That's the great thing about the game.
And that ties into my next question for you. I've got a picture here. The guy that really did all of that for everybody, at least in Los Angeles and Brooklyn, is Vin Scully. Tell me what it was like working with Vinny, and the first time you got a chance to really visit with him and get to know him. I know as a PR director, you've got to get lineups and statistics and everything his way. When did that relationship begin with you?
Well, it began certainly in my very first year to get to know Vinny very well. And Vinny represents not only in the greatness of the game, but in the greatness of life. And I had a very nice birthday surprise on Saturday. Tim Madigan, who wrote the book on City of Hope, Extra Innings, all the net proceeds go to City of Hope. Wow. Called Vinny and did a tape on Vinny. And he sent me that tape. And in Vinny's words, he's talking about our friendship. He absolutely loved my wife, Cheryl. And his words were so typical of Vinny, of being able to capture the essence of something. And in that tape, and it's in the book, the writing, he said that, and this is important to me, whatever Fred did with the Dodgers can't come close to what he's doing now to help others with the City of Hope and calling attention to City of Hope. And so at 90, you never know how many more podcasts you may have. But if you want to know about Vinny, it's summarized in the card in loving memory of Vincent Edward Scully, November 29, 1927, August 2, 2022. The prayer of St. Francis that I'll only read the first chapter, but it's the essence of what follows. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is injury, pardon. And where there is doubt, faith. That's all one needs to know, really, about who Vin Scully was, remains, and will always be. One of the finest people that the Lord ever presented on earth. And what he meant, not only his voice, not only his talent, but his heart and his soul, and what he meant to the Dodgers and to baseball will never, ever, and should never, ever, and will not ever be forgotten. So he was certainly one of the most special, inspirational people that I've ever met in my life. I have saved only one or two messages when I was going through cancer on my phone, and one of those is from Vin. So he was just such a blessing for all of us who knew him. And when I say all of us, the wonderful part of that is you didn't even have to physically know him or shake his hand. You knew him through his voice, which respected his talent and his spirit. But there's something else that you should never forget about Vinny. And I would see this in spring training games. And this is a lesson for all of us. As great as he was, and I've seen many announcers go into that spring training press box, no one went in more prepared or giving more to a spring training game than he did. Harper, like football practice, everything you do, every moment, be the best that you can be. And that's the lesson that Vinny left for all of us. Be the best that you can be. And with all the other attributes of his compassion, of his kindness, of all that there is about him.
Fred, one of the compliments that I would give Vin is he had the ability to do both. And what I mean by that is there are hundreds of things going on all around you. The cockroaches are flying all around. Someone's just turned on the lights. There's just so much happening. And he's as calm as he could possibly be on a glorious Saturday afternoon here at beautiful Dodger Stadium. And he'd make you want to be there with him. And there are times where nothing is happening. You can hear the hot dog vendor in row B457 calling out, "Get your hot dogs." And he would tell a story of Sandy Koufax or Roy Campanella, and I wouldn't care what was going on in the batter's box anymore. Finish the story, Vin. And here's a ball. It's 2-1 to Garvey. Get back to the story. He had the ability to do both. Whatever both is for any listener, he could do it with calmness, and my desire to keep listening to him was it was like a never-ending Johnny Carson act where the kid comes out, and then you got to get him off the stage because it's too much. It wasn't with him. I can't wait to visit with him tomorrow.
And he was always there, that talent, that mind. And with Vinny, it goes back to his love of the game, his deep love of the game. He was a fan of Mel Ott and the Giants growing up in New York. But you see, once you're prepared, then the moment, it's like in any sport, the moment never becomes too big. Gibson hits the ball out. Then his words, his mind, his spirit, that he was able to, in a season that has been so improbable, the impossible.
The impossible has happened.
Fred, you touched on it. Fred said that Vin was not only people that never knew him or ever met him. He's one of the most classy individuals I've ever known, like Fred, but they feel he's a part of their family. Let me just tell you, in 1958, I lived in La Cañada, California, down by Descanso Gardens. I can remember a hot summer night when windows were open, and I could hear Vin Scully's voice going through the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he got ladies in 1958, women didn't know anything about baseball. He taught women about baseball. Everybody had portable radios. You go to the Coliseum, there'd be 90,000 people. He'd say a joke about the umpire, and the whole place, and nobody knew what was happening. The whole place would laugh. 90,000 people laughing, and nobody knows it was Scully because everybody had. But he was like a family. My dad loved him. I can remember my dad sitting out on the pool listening to Scully, and this is back in the 50s. He said, "This guy's the greatest guy I ever heard." That's 58. So he's been a part of my life, my whole life. He's like,
what do you got there, Fred?
I want to end with this, since we've come to Vin. It's not framed. I certainly never would have shared it during Vin's lifetime. I want to show you one of the most treasured
Wow.
of my life. Vin Scully, 7/6/98. Dear Fred, I am sure that you will understand how difficult this letter is for me to write, and no doubt difficult for you to read. I have tried to compose it many times, and each time I kept drifting off in many different directions that I wound up feeling totally frustrated. The result of all my labor is to keep it very simple. I thoroughly enjoyed our many years together, and I am saddened to say goodbye. You have my total respect as a decent human being and as a diligent and knowledgeable baseball man, as well as my deep admiration and loyalty as a friend. We all are fully aware that nothing lasts forever, including ourselves. And write that in mind. I pray God will shower you and Cheryl with all of his blessings in all the years to come. Your friend, Vin. So I can't think of of all of the words, because his words meant more than anything. I can't think of all the words, all the many nice things that have come my way that I would treasure more than those words. So as I reach 90 and realize my blessings, and we see Jackie behind me.
Yes.
In my heart and in my soul.
Yeah.
And we see Vinny in our hearts and in our soul. I thank you for this opportunity to be with you. And I can tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity.
Well, we certainly are the ones on the receiving end of the blessing for you being with us, Fred. We know you have a hard stop and an important engagement. You're a champion in so many different ways, and we want to thank you for you giving us your time. Bob, any final word before we go?
All I can say is whatever I thought of Fred Clare before this interview, I love him. I really, really feel I got to really know him in this interview. So thank you, Fred, for letting me really see who you really, really are. I love you, buddy. God bless you.
Thank you.
Well, and Fred, we didn't even get to this, right? There's so many things that we would love to have you back on. If that's an availability for you, please let us know, and we'll stop what we're doing so we can get
let's do it. Here's the thing about being 90. You have to plan for the future, and you have to plan for a positive way.
Yeah, you
so
do.
We can do this in either, I'll give you two options. We can do it in 6 months, or we can do it in another year. And I keep in mind the thoughts of the beloved Vin, who we just discussed, who said to me and others, you know, when you're my age and you map plans for the future, the good Lord just kind of smiles. So my smile to all of you, my appreciation, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll keep this one brief. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the 100 Yards of Football platform. And the show here is the Sports Page with Bob Case. And Bob brings some very special friends and some people that are close to him, but also important, impactful folks for the game. And Fred, for all you did for the game, for all you will continue to do for the game of baseball, we want to thank you and honor you for that. So for Bob Case, for Fred Clare, I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you for tuning in, everybody. We hope you have a fantastic